So you and I have something in common. We both love travel. Yeah. It sounds like it's been a big part of your life based on our first conversation. Yeah. Talk to me about travel and exploration and what that's meant for you in your life.
Well, like I had mentioned, the first time that I went backpacking through Peru, like that was truly a life-changing experience. After that, went back up to Fort McMurray and kept working. And well, my friend, he kept traveling and having the time of his life. And then this was like October, he came home for Christmas. And it was just like South America was like the most amazing place. Like you missed out on like the chance of a lifetime kind of thing, right? And then he went to Thailand and was emailing me like right around New Year's saying, this place is so much better. Like, and I was just like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
I already told you I have to work,
Yeah.
and then so flew back up to Fort McMurray and it was cold. We were building this big tailings corridor. So it's all heavy civil, like earthwork stuff, and way too cold to build anything. So all of a sudden, the project that I was up there working on shut down till spring. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I have like 3 months off. And he's going to be in Southeast Asia for 3 months. So I was like, went and told my boss, and he's like, well, you could come back into the office and work on your design and stuff. And I'm like, already in my head, just like, no, I'm going. So it was like 2 days later, is on an airplane, and we traveled through Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia for 2.5 months, and it was just incredible. And it's you just meet the most amazing people, like in those situations, and you put yourself in different situations every single day, and you become comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Like ordering food and not knowing what the heck to say or what it is that's going to show up in front of you.
Right.
I don't know, it's exhilarating. And then once you realize, like once you come to that conclusion, it's like, well, everything's just fun then. I've met a pile of people that had just come from India, and we're just like, India is the most beautiful country. Like, it's so amazing. Like, you have to check it out. And so that really stuck with me. And when I was back in Saskatchewan working at that time, I had like planned that on my 30th birthday, I was going to fly to India. And so I did that. And yeah, I was there for about 3 months, as well as 2 weeks in Nepal, and went from Mumbai south, flew up to Delhi, was lucky to go to one of my friends' weddings and just like experience like the entire celebration, like a whole week of basically just love, right? Like and there's so much vibrancy and color and just like
it's all very rich.
Well, and the people are like, by Canadian standards, don't have a lot. Everybody's smiling though. Every single face you see has a smile on their face, and it just like was something that like really stuck with me. I remember when I came home, and I was really expecting this life-changing experience. I thought there'd be like an aha moment kind of thing, right?
Right.
And I went and saw my grandma for the first time since I came from India, and she's like, I don't know, Jared, there's something about you that's different. I'm like, well, I don't feel any different. She's like, well, you look happy. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there was something to that, right? Like maybe, and yeah, it was just like, I know, like at the beginning of that trip, it felt like the most challenging things that I'd ever encountered to try to cross the street, right? The traffic didn't make any sense to me.
Because there is no sense.
No,
it's just,
okay,
it's
good.
Like,
well,
go.
Yeah. And by the end of that trip, the last day that I was there, there were a bunch of like people that had just arrived, and we were staying in the same hostel. So it's like, okay, well, let's go check out like Mumbai. I didn't really get to check it out because whatever it had. It's a long story, but the city had gotten shut down when I was there initially. And so I wanted to go see kind of the tourist destinations and stuff. And so we just went out and we went and checked out like an art gallery and like, yeah, just a bunch of different monuments and stuff. And by when we came back, everybody was just like, I can't believe like we were able to cross the street like that. Like that was terrifying. And I was just like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you just went for it. And we were all just like looking at each other, just like, oh shit, let's go. And it's kind of like, okay, well, these changes happened and they just kind of like take time to sort of like set in.
Right.
But I guess we're always changing, right? And maybe, yeah, it was just a way to sort of accelerate that change. And I think has just been something that's, I've really enjoyed and see that kind of like exploration, something that I'm just really passionate about, whether it's like in my personal or professional life. Really, it's the same thing.
This one's going to be a tough one to answer. I think it'd be tough for me to answer as well. But is there a favorite trip, city, region experience from all of your travels that stands out or has a special place for you?
There is. When I left Punjab, I was back on my own. I went to Shimla and became like met this like travel guide kind of thing, like a local man who lived like he was from Kashmir, and I just wanted to go to Kashmir so bad. So this was like on the itinerary the entire time, kind of like one of the last places that I'd visit.
Right.
And so we had this trip kind of all mapped out. And when the morning I was supposed to leave, I went and his boss was there. And he's like, sorry, Hassan's not around. Like, you're going to be going with Sunny. And I was like, well, that's not what we agreed on. Like, I was going with Hassan and we're going to have this Jeep that we were supposed to be taking into the mountains. And instead, I have another driver who's like, I haven't built this rapport with, and we have just a car going into the mountains. And I'm like, I'm not a dummy. Like, I feel like when it's winter and we're going into the mountains, we should have something a little more robust than a car. And it's like, well, I had a kind of a timeline, needed to get on the road. So I'm like, whatever. So hopped in the car with Sunny. First couple of days weren't, super spectacular. We just stayed at a hotel the one day. We went to Revulsor and stayed at a Sikh temple, which like was an incredible experience. But the next morning woke up and it was just kind of like drizzling. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going deeper into the mountains again. Like, how's this going to go? And whatever, we hop in the car and we start driving. And the rain starts, getting heavier. And then all of a sudden it starts turning to snow. And we're driving up this road and like on the highway. And all of a sudden all the traffic stopped. And I'm just like, okay, Sonny, like, how long are we going to be here for? Could be 15 minutes, could be hours. Like there's no way to know. And I'm just like, all right. So we're sitting there waiting and then all of a sudden some of the traffic, like the opposing traffic starts driving. And then some of the cars in front of us start moving. And the car right in front of us is going up a hill and gets stuck. And so I get out, Sonny gets out. We start pushing this car up the hill. And all these horns are honking and we're just pushing. And we get the car going. And then we look back and our car with all of my stuff in it, every single thing I have is sliding down the road and ends up like falling, like teetering on this cliff. So one wheel is hanging off with my backpack, all my stuff just like in the trunk. And we're just sitting on the side of the road, just like, okay, what do we do now? Snow's just getting heavier and heavier. Traffic's driving by. Everybody's taking pictures of us. And it's just like, like, what do you do? So Sonny, he finds somebody. They take off. I'm sitting here alone, and then eventually comes back with the tractor. So they grab like this wire. There's no hooks or anything. Try to tie it in a knot. Sonny gets his hand all sliced up, and eventually get the car back on the road. We keep going, and we end up in Manali, which is like a kind of like a vacationing type spot. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful town. But I just remember coming into that town, and this snow is just so heavy at this point. And we go to pull into the hotel we're staying at, and poor Sonny like pulls into the gutter, and so the two passenger side tires fall into this gutter, and because you couldn't see anything, so he's frustrated because like this car is just taking a beating.
Mm-hmm.
Go get checked into the hotel, end up getting up to my room, and it's freezing cold. So I'm like, can I get a heater or something like that? So they bring up an electric heater, and then starting to warm up, and it's just the most beautiful. Like I just have these pictures out of my window, just like the way the snow is just like sitting on these trees, but it just keeps coming and coming and coming, and then all of a sudden the power goes out, and my heater's gone, and just like go downstairs like, hey Sonny, like how long is this gonna last for? There's no way to know. So whatever, I go upstairs, go to sleep, and wake up the next morning and look out, and just again like just picturesque, like just beautiful, and look down and I see Sonny just like walking around his car and just like frustrated. I'm like, oh, it sucks, whatever, because he had his wheels still in the gutter. Come down. Well, here, this whole sign that was on top of the hotel fell directly on the roof of his car, smashed out all the windows. And I'm just like, this is the worst luck ever. And this whole time I've been like in communication with Sonny's boss, just being like, this isn't what we signed up for. This is not like, we're not experiencing anything like you kind of had promised.
Yeah, we're kind of just surviving.
Yeah, and you're not really holding up your end of the bargain. So, so then was just like, you know what? We're going to be stranded here. All the roads were closed down, and there was no power. And so I just said, Kate, well, this is like just kind of calling it quits. I'm going on my own, and was in Manali for an entire week till the roads were opened up again, till I was able to catch a bus. But that week, still to this day, was like one of my favorite weeks of my life. Like I couldn't go anywhere except in this beautiful town. And so I would walk to like this natural spring, like hot springs, and that's where I would bathe. And so it was like a, several kilometer walk. And then I would come back, and then I'd go for coffee, and I just did like, there was so much writing and just the exploration of like where I was and what I was kind of, seeing as like where I wanted to be. Like all of that just became really clear after kind of facing that adversity and realizing everything was okay. And just like by the end of that, it was just incredible. And hopped on a bus eventually to get out of there, and I ended up getting up to Kashmir. Like everything was just incredible. Yeah. After that, so
what a gift.
Yeah.
To get a week there in those circumstances and just be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For everything to kind of like fall into place like that. Like it was.
And to show itself. Like it sounds like you got a lot of clarity out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you willing to share what clarity you got, or what?
Well,
if there was anything notable?
Again, I think it's like a lot of like purpose related clarity, I would say. Like, I mean, that, like I struggled with like alcohol, throughout my entire life up till that point. And kind of like I knew I wanted to quit, but there was never a circumstance where I quit, I guess. Like it was just something that was weighing me down. And like, I don't think there was any like of the aha moments where that's what caused it, but I knew enough at that point that I knew I wanted to stop. And it wasn't long after that when I came back that I did, or I stopped. And
Right.
yeah, just was able to prioritize what was important to me and make sure that that was front of mind for everything that I did going forward.
And you were 30 then.
Yeah.
You're almost 42 now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, do you still, that sense of purpose that you gained that week, is that still your anchor, or have those shifted?
I mean, my priorities have shifted. Married and 2 children now. Mm-hmm. And that's certainly become much more of a priority for me. But still, the way that I structure my life is the same.
Right.
Like making sure that I have the time to spend with my kids, you know, being at their activities and watching them, you know, helping support them in the things that are interesting to them. Like it's probably more of a support role than, you know, actively trying to pursue the things that I would have been interested in before. But it's still like exploration. It's still learning. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I love. So if I get to continue to do that, then I'm happy.
And the travel specific part, and this is something I'm struggling with, so I'm asking selfishly, how have you been able to incorporate that, or have you been able to, into your family life for your kids and with your partner?
It's been tougher. I mean, financial, like money goes to different places when you have mouths to feed. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I obviously haven't yet, but planning on being able to take them around the world, take a year off, kind of like a sabbatical, show them what this world is. You know, it's not just our home in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. It is so much bigger, and there are so many other perspectives and so many other people going through so many other challenges. And I think being able to share, or for them to have that insight and thought, you know, in their growth and development, like I think is incredibly important. And that's one of the things I think that I'm most excited to share with them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that view, that perspective. So we have that in common as well too. I think Nick and I would love to like take off for a year at some point and do it, but we're always debating the right age for our kid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you guys have a sense for like?
Soon. I feel like it's soon.
Yeah. Because there's kind of a sweet spot between like maybe too young to fully get a lot out of it, and then they have their own lives, right? Yeah. Like it's just,
Yeah, like I think if you get into high school, that's probably too late. Like, what are you thinking for age for you guys?
I don't know. It's certainly like not any time. Like she's 4 now. I think like 10 to 12 would be a pretty great spot, right? Like kind of before you're fully a teenager and kind of experiencing a lot of that. I think 10 to 12 would be really good. But then there's always the question of like where too, right? Like, and what's
so
just
where?
I could tell you where I know for sure will be on the list. Like India, of course. That's, you know, that's where my family's originally from. And every time we've tried to get back there, it just hasn't worked out for a variety of reasons. And plus, it is a country you need a lot of time to go and see and experience. So India for sure. One of my favorite trips that we ever took, or like just my favorite regions in the world, is kind of South Africa and surrounding. So like Nick and I actually have done South Africa, like Cape Town and a little bit of their surrounding regions, but we did a road trip through Namibia, like from the desert to the sea, the rainforest. Like it's just a beautiful, beautiful country. I think Namibia is one of the most gorgeous places on earth. And I haven't been there yet, but Botswana would be. So we would love to spend some time in Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. That for sure would be on the list. I personally haven't done a lot of South America. Like I'm not a person to have any regrets, but like I wish because I started working at Lafarge after my first year of undergrad, and I just started and my career just kind of went from there. Yeah. I wish I would have taken some time to do what you did, right? Because it's tough for now, right? But yeah, so I haven't spent a lot of time in South America, but I would love to. Yeah, those are kind of the regions for sure. Like Vietnam, Thailand, I think those are just special as well too to experience at some point. Nick has never been, but he's got this thing with New Zealand. He just feels like New Zealand would. He's a very outdoorsy type person. So I think there'd be a lot of activity and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, some version of that.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you? Where?
Well, my wife, she has an uncle in the Philippines. So I feel like that would be a good, easy first step.
Right.
I really want to go to Japan. I have driven through Sweden, like from the south end up to Stockholm and then back. And that drive was incredible. Swedish heritage. So I just want to spend more time there. That was like 24 hours. Like it was a pretty quick trip. All depends on the time and
how it works out, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of one of my last questions for you is, so, you know, your girls and your wife priority. What are some other priorities that are just really key for you that is going to fill this next chunk of time for you? Like even from a business perspective, what are your priorities with Peter Lucas and other organizations? And
family, I guess, is always going to be, I think, a really big part of that. You know, I don't know if I could exclude that from that.
That's top of the list. Yeah.
Yeah. Like being able to spend as much time as I can with my kids while they're at home.
Yeah.
So I think for this initial chunk of time, while they're at home, while they're, you know, still under our roof, I just want to be able to maximize that, you know, that you spend like 90 or 95% of your time with them in those short years. And then after that, you get to see them like at holidays and stuff, right? Like it's, and, you know, so trying to be more conscious of that too, and being able to spend time with my parents and grandparents. Like I still have 3 grandparents that are alive, and like being able to experience that, just life with them and, you know, conversations with them. That's, I guess, something that's a priority. And writing. Like I just love writing. Okay. And it's kind of like a way to get my thoughts out, I guess, kind of like therapeutic. So I just, whenever I have free time, that's usually how I spend it.
Yeah. Journaling, like specific, I don't think I knew the writing thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, whatever comes out. So I have a journal. I have a notebook, and there's a bunch of just like stuff about what's going on in my life. There's a whole bunch of like creative stuff, like poetry, and just like the way that words kind of work together. And I guess that's just like something that's always been interesting to me, is how you can take, you know, 5 words and reshape them, and they mean completely different things. And just kind of like, it's neat how that works, and how when you use those words, you have so much potential to communicate a message or a thought or whatever's in your head at that moment. And yeah, so I don't know. I've just, it's just something that I love doing and hope to continue to do for as long as I'm alive.
Yeah. That's another very unique thing about you, is like you obviously work in a very like masculine structured work. Projects have to be structured. There's budget and time implications, but you also have a very creative side to you as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like and that's something that I love doing with my kids. You know, like it's I still think of the one day we were up at my parents' cabin up at the lake, and the girls would have been like 2 and 4 or something like that. And, or I guess maybe 3 and 5, because they could both communicate fairly well. But just wanted to say, like, if like we can write a story, right? What do you guys want this story to be about? And so they just throw a bunch of ideas out there. It's like, okay, so I put all these like words together, created a story out of it, and then they drew the pictures. And so I'd drawn all these pictures. So we ended up creating just a storybook. Mm-hmm. And, you know, being able to then like say, if this is something that you enjoy doing, you can make this a career. And so we printed off a bunch of these. And then similar to like a lemonade stand, they were on our sidewalk selling these books. And it was just like something that you kind of like, I wanted to share that entrepreneurial aspect of it where you can take it from idea through to like a product or through to whatever.
Yeah.
And you can continue to do that for your whole life if that's something that you want. So
Right.
just always trying to connect the dots for them or help them, just like see that you can have an idea and turn it into something, have an idea, turn it into something.
Right.
That's the creative process.
Yeah.
Whether it's music, whether it's writing, like poetry, whether it's like storytelling, anything. And like they both just like gravitate to music. They, they both love dancing and just like acting and just like being goofy and stuff like that. Right. And that's something that I just want to continue to like nurture and help them kind of see that and not just be like, oh, you got to get a job out of school and like, here's all the steps you have to follow. And it's like, you're again, just trying to instill that they're the ones responsible for their decisions. They're the ones that are responsible for following that path. And they're the ones responsible for like creating the roadmap. So that's kind of been one of the big things for me as a parent is just giving them the freedom to do that and just kind of like helping kind of put the barriers on the side so they don't fall off the road kind of thing.
I love that, Jared. Like that's like, I think the lemonade stand is intended to show, okay, you can sell something and earn some income, but like the fact that you've shown them a roadmap to creating something that has a value, has a commercial value. Like to me, like that's like my business and my mom, like that's amazing. Yeah. Like that's, I think that's such a big part of parenting is just like what you're saying is unlimiting them. I think we were, at least my generation as a whole, I can say, I don't know if you relate to it. We were limited. You go to university, you pick a trade and you get a job and you stay there. And like, that's a very limited path, not one that's for everybody. Right. And so you're unlimiting them, showing them what's possible, showing them different avenues that are possible. It's amazing. Yeah. They're just sponges and they just soak it all in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so just pour gas on the fire and let them grow. Right. Like it's,
So how do you, and this is not like this a whole work-life balance dichotomy or challenge that everybody faces, but like you've got a big role, big job, big business, and 2 little girls and a partner. Like what is your approach to making sure you optimize your time, which is a very clear priority for you?
I just think that it's being cognizant of the things that are pulling at your time. Like that's the ultimate currency that we have is like hours, minutes, seconds, right? So being able to just keep that. And again, like when it comes to like journaling, that's something that's always just like, here's every single thought that I have, and it just gets on the page. And by going through that practice, then you're able to, again, like step back and be like, okay, if this is what I want, what here is going to help me along that way? And the stuff that isn't important, isn't a priority, doesn't need my attention, won't get done, but I've already said that doesn't matter. So that's kind of, it's just like always making sure that the priorities stay the priority. And that's kind of, you just have to say no to a bunch of things, and it just is what it is. So
just let it all the stuff fall away that doesn't matter. Yeah, it's being really clear. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jared. I really enjoyed that conversation, and I just really enjoy the way that you think and approach life.
Thanks, Pavan. It's been awesome chatting with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome.